Let's build the best Space Marine unit GW released in recent months. So I've got a lot of Space Marines, like a lot. They're my first army back into the hobby and I just can't stop building them. I started with my own custom force, the Voidwalkers, who sit around 4,000 or 5,000 points strong, and then in UK Lockdown 1, if you cast your mind back to those heady times, I started on Blood Angels. 12,000 points of Vampires later, I got stuck into Grey Knights, 4,000 points, and then into Deathwatch for the DZTV Hobbypocalypse, around 3,000 points too. As an aside, if you want to watch me build that army alongside 3 other people who are more talented than me, Stylus, Brapscallion and the ever-elusive Monkey, you can find that in deploymentzone.tv. The point is, or points, over 20k, I have a lot of Space Marines, and I was happy to leave it there. But then the Black Templars were announced over on Warhammer Community. Flowing robes, chains, purity seals and power swords, braziers, candles, icons of faith and some really amazing models slow walking towards the camera. I knew the instant these were revealed, I needed them in my life and set about prepping for this, my 5th Space Marine army. I vowed, apt, for Black Templars are quite fond of vows, to complete 1,250 points of Templars by January 2022, ready for the second King of the North tournament, the tournament that isn't a tournament, hosted by my friend Brapscallion up at Element Games in Stockport. I've been plugging away at these guys for some time now, and I've been really enjoying it. I've been pushing myself here, trying to make them the best force they can possibly be in terms of paint job. I've also been getting into the rules, and praise the Holy Emperor, these guys are vicious. Close combat is the language of love for these knights in black, and I am all in. One of the shiniest of the new kits is that of the Sword Brethren box. These guys are beautiful sculpts, and the minute I saw them I knew I was getting multiple boxes. My list for the upcoming non-tournament tournament only needs 5 of these guys however, so I didn't have to end up in too much of a building frenzy. Building the models, I found they're about on par for the course when considering more recent GW kits. Really high levels of detail, very satisfying to put together at times, but at others incredibly fiddly. But I managed to make it through. I decided to stick these guys to some lovely resin bases from March of War. They save me a lot of time later and it means they get to match my Sisters of Battle, which the narrative bunny in me loves. For painting, I primed black and started attacking the armour. I started with a light dry brush to help me identify the raised details and establish the light values. I did this by using a circular motion on the uppermost surfaces. I then went in with a regular brush and thin paints, reinforcing these colours and adding edge highlights on prominent details and bar highlights, those being highlights along cylindrical objects, to those areas that needed them. I also created a few orbs of light here and there on round surfaces. The colours I worked through were Incubi Darkness mixed with black, then plain old Incubi, followed by Thunderhawk Blue and Fenrisian Grey. This may seem really bright for black, but the next step helps tie it all together. I mixed up some super thin Pterodon turquoise and glazed this all over every model. This created a really nice sheen and finished up the armour. I then started on the robes. After the armour, these cover most of the models, so I wanted them done early. Plus, I was putting white over a black base coat, and that's just... it's just horrible. I started with a mid-tone grey in the form of light grey from Tamiya. I like this paint because it flows well and doesn't dry out. Once this was blocked in nicely as my shadow colour, I used Vallejo Pale Blue Grey over the top as a layer. Once I'd made one thin layer and a bit of the darker grey was still showing through, I started cross-hatching my way across the fabric to give it a worn texture. I did this slowly with a sharp brush and made diagonal lines all the way down, switched angle, and then did it all the way back up. I repeated this process with Ulthuan Grey. Once this was done, I tidied any areas I'd highlighted up by mistake with the base colour to help darken the shadows slightly. It's okay to make mistakes. Often, we can fix them with just a little patience. Up next were the shoulder pads, the cloaks, and a couple of the guns. I love the red accents that the Sword Brethren have, and I always look forward to this step. I base coated all the areas with Khorne red. I then went in with some Doomball brown into the shadows to help spike the contrast, and a tiny bit of super thin, but not watery, Rhinox hide. After this, the cloaks were much the same as the robes, cross-hatching with progressively brighter colours. In this case, Evil Sun Scarlet and Wild Rider Red for the sharp creases. On the shoulder pads and weapons I did the same, but focused on a slightly metallic shine, much like the rest of the armour. I also added a little dot highlight of Ungor flesh to help it look shiny. I followed all of this with a thinned glaze of Flesh Tearer's red contrast paint on the cloaks, as they were looking a little too orange. This made it all red to my eye again. I've been going for some non-metallic metal on my Templars. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Does it look like MMM? Kind of. Am I happy with it? Yes, absolutely I am. I tried a new technique with this army and I've been improving as I go. I've been having a really good time doing it and I'm a fan of how it's turned out. Firstly, I base coated all the gold with Baylor Brown as a nice mid-tone. I also base coated the leather while I was at it. I then added Doomball Brown into the recesses to amp up the contrast. I added thin layers of Ushabti bone and Screaming Skull to the areas that reflect the light the most to help it look like metal. Finally, I glazed it all with thin Eandan yellow to give it that yellow gold look. It's a little cartoony, but I like that. My Black Templars look like they're out of a graphic novel, and I really think it works. How cool would a Black Templars graphic novel be? I'll save that £1 million idea for later. I also highlighted the leather at the same time with lots of little scratches and abrasions. I then did the exact same thing with the grey metals, to an even more cartoony effect. You'll likely have noticed the little Pyre Pistol fuel tank from the previous clip. Slightly different colour to the grey, obviously it's like a brassy colour. I did all the brushwork while I was doing the gold, but I glazed Agaros dunes over the top here instead for a brass look. For the steel I used Esching Grey, Tamiya Light Grey and Vallejo Pale Grey for this effect. It was actually quite quick to do and I honestly prefer it compared to paints like Lead Belcher. I also threw on some Agrax Earthshade. You won't see it here, but that was just all over the leather to darken it down. It's a really nice tone. I like pre-highlighting the leather and then putting a shade over the top. It's really easy actually, and it's a good look. Xandri Dust, Agrax, Ushabti Bones, Screaming Sun, some black for letters, Screamer Pink and Pink Horror for the wax seals and for the weapon grips. That's it. The power weapons were completed in much the same way as the molten weapons from my Stormcast video, which you should 100% go and watch. If you like that kind of thing. I can't really tell you what to do. But I used blues here. I started with Araman blue because it covered most of the blades, then went in with some Temple Guard blue, little bit of Baharoth blue, a little bit of white right at the end, and then I used an older brush and stabbed some black around the edges to give that flaking metal look. I'm a big fan of this look. I think it looks really cool in a strange blue, and it just makes the Templars pop a little bit more. I had a bit of fun with the heraldry of the tilting plates, using some complementary colours and a couple of diddy transfers. I'd quickly attack the bases with Thunderhawk blue straight over the black, followed by Fenrisian grey, both with a dry brush. Finally for painting was some OSL, or Object Source Lighting, with the airbrush, focused around any braziers or light sources on the minis. 2 sweeps of Griffhound Orange and Eandon Yellow later. Those are really hard to say, I've got it wrong 4 times, this is my 4th take. Plus some customary leaves on the bases, and these Holy Warriors are complete. The only problem is, I accidentally used the wrong dropper bottle, so I was this close to ruining one of the models with some acrylic medium. Read the labels, kids. With the leaves down, these combat specialists are ready to get stuck into some heretics and purge in the Emperor's name. I am so very excited to field them in the new year. I just hope we don't all get stuck inside again before then.